The famous artist Wassily Kandinsky was known for creating abstract art in the early 1900s. However, there was another artist who made abstract art before him. Many times, an artist can claim credit for something that they didn't necessarily do, mostly because they do it better than those before them. I'm sure there are plenty of you that have experienced a scenario like this yourself. As an art major, I've taken a couple of art history courses, and have also read a couple of scholarly articles from Sanford Schwartz, who is an author, editor, and art critic, and Julia Voss, who is an art historian and a writer for the Frankfurter General newspaper, and also the artstory.org's biography of Klint. Hilma af Klint, the other artist I mentioned earlier, has changed art history through her unique pieces despite her lack of fame. Her life has influenced her to the point of creating abstract art 4 years prior to Kandinsky. First, I will cover how her life brought her closer to abstraction. Her life was obviously more elaborate than the timeline shown here, but it's a simplified version of her life. Despite her father being an admiral and a mathematician, according to artstory.org, her family supported her art interests as well as Sweden as a whole, where the people were open to artistic careers and even to female artists, whereas other countries were not during this time. After her little sister Hermina died, at the age of 18, according to Schwartz, Hilma af Klint at the Guggenheim article in 2019, she sought consolation through spiritual matters, like being a medium, despite her Lutheran upbringing. She was part of a spiritual occult that was founded by women called Theosophy, which translates from Greek to divine wisdom. This ideology included beliefs like connecting to the dead and such, and unfortunately, the death of her younger sister motivated her to take part in these beliefs. Later on in life, Schwartz explains that one of the higher masters, the people over the Theosophy base temples, asked Klint to make art to decorate the altars with. Because of her background, Klint was led to pioneer in abstract works. Klint created her first series of abstract pieces in 1906 to 1907 in Sweden. This series was called Primordial Chaos, and they were numbered as individuals. This specific piece, shown on the screen, is the 16th painting of the series. According to the artstory.org, Klint had the yellows represent feminine aspects, while the blue colors represented masculinity, and therefore, when combined, they both create different variations of green. This pattern reoccurred throughout this specific series. Klint explained that her inspiration for creating such works was from a higher being. Schwartz explains that Klint participated in seances, which were kind of like rituals, in the 1890s. This is when she created her pieces almost unconsciously. Klint wrote that the pictures were painted directly through me, without any preliminary drawings, and with great force, which refers to a higher being. With her background and experiences, she was able to create masterworks before one of the most famous artists in the world did. Another thing that separates these artists is their location. While Kandinsky was in Russia and then moved to Germany, Klint stayed in Sweden her whole life and therefore didn't have any contact with each other. Kandinsky created all of his abstract pieces after 1910 in Germany. Voss mentioned in her article titled The First Abstract Artist, and it wasn't Kandinsky, in 2013 that Kandinsky claimed that his 1911 oil painting was the world's first ever abstract picture. He goes on to say it is because back then, not one single painter was painting in an abstract style, when he wrote to a New York gallerist in 1935. However, Kandinsky created his first abstract watercolor in 1910 in Germany. He most likely didn't mention this piece previously because it was in a sketch format. Sometimes when an artist paints, they typically paint with watercolor and then go over it with oils, just like the rest of his completed masterworks. Even when the two artists were not aware of each other, she still created abstract art before he did. Despite not being as known as Kandinsky, Klint was a founder of the abstract art period and therefore changed the art world. Unfortunately, an artist can take credit for something that isn't necessarily theirs to claim. Not believing everything you hear without